I get a lot of questions like this one. I'd like a tip on what brushes you use, name and numbers, and how you use them. I want to show you how to make a simple question complex. So here is my brushes. These are the brushes I use when I'm oil painting. So I don't think you want me to go through each one of these with the names and the numbers and how to use each one, because I think that would probably, you'd be going a long time before I finish that. Mainly my brushes for oil painting fall into three categories. They're the bristle brushes, or I think of those as the brushes I begin with, and then there are my soft brushes. Those are the brushes that I use as I'm finishing a painting for the most part, and then those are my specialty brushes, brushes that give me special effects. So I have a collection of bristle brushes here. Now my favorite bristle brushes over the years, I've tried many, but my favorite bristle brushes are made by Utrecht, and this is the Utrecht 209, and this is the filbert 209. This is number 8 of the filbert. But I don't just stick to one size. I use the size that works best for the size of shape or area in which I'm working. So for a larger shape, here's the brush I usually start out with. If I'm starting out with a filbert brush, I usually start out with this one, and this is a size 12 Utrecht 209. But then I will, once I work a larger area, I'll move on down to a smaller brush, and I'll usually gradate down according, because I always work from general to specific. So this is my larger work. This is not the little demos I do for you here. So, and then if I need a brush that's going to require more rounded work, I'll use the filbert. If I need a brush that's going to require more linear work or flatter shapes, I'll use the flat brush. Another bristle, and by the way, these are pure hog bristle. The Utrecht is available on Utrecht.com. Now Utrecht brushes are getting harder and harder to find because I have a feeling they might be phasing out since Utrecht was purchased by Blick. But there are still some available now. But another brand of bristle brush that I like is the Asabi. Now this is the Asabi 6086 flat. This of course, same story. If I need the shapes flatter or I need the edges flatter, I'll use the flatter brush. But I usually begin a painting when I'm working my own work, not when I'm doing the demos for you, and maybe sometimes when I'm doing the full-length tutorials that we have. I might start out with a bristle brush, but I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But when I'm working my work, my larger work, I always start out with the large bristle. I do the block end all the way down with a large bristle, and then I move to a softer brush. The softer brush gives me more control, and the softer brushes I like are the Vermeer brand. And here's another one that's getting harder and harder to find, but for the moment, this is the Vermeer. It's just called Vermeer, and it's made by Creative Mark, and it's called, this one is the Vermeer flat, and I have quite a range of sizes. This is my larger Vermeer flat, and again I use the size of brush that best works, or best fits, or is more appropriate, easier for me to work in the size of shape. So if it's a large shape, I'll be using the larger brush. If it's a small shape, I'll be using the smaller brush. So that's the Vermeer. Now for brushes that I use to do the exercises that you see here, and most of the tutorials that I do, the full-length tutorials, I go to my rosemary brushes, and these are my rosemary brushes. I don't have very many because they're really such good brushes. I don't really need very many. But notice I don't have the larger version of the rosemary brush, because when I'm using them for the tutorials, I'm working in a smaller area. This is the Rosemary Series 274, and this is the Rosemary Flat. This one is called actually Rosemary Flat, and this was called the Rosemary Long Flat. It's Series 279. But this is a really good all-purpose brush. It's especially good for doing studies or for working in smaller areas. So I've sort of fallen in love with the Rosemary brushes, and I imagine if some of the hog bristle brushes get phased out, I'm going to find myself moving more towards the Rosemary brushes because they're so beautiful to work with. This 274. Now, I must say, I also have here in my collection the Rosemary Ivories, which are a little bit too precise. Oh, well, they're very good brushes for doing precise work, but a little too precise for the way I work. So I use them only occasionally. But my big workhorses are my bristles, the hog bristle. Now, this is not synthetic. This is the hog bristle. And always look for the finest quality hog bristle, because there are a lot of really cheap hog bristle brushes available that are really no good. The bristles are going to fall out and you have no control. For the specialty brushes, one of my favorites, once again, no longer available. You might say, well, I'm using these antiquated brushes. Well, I've been using these brushes for a long, long time, and the way technology goes and companies buying out companies and that sort of thing, sometimes your favorite tools get phased out and you have to find a substitute. I haven't found a substitute for this one yet, neither has Richard Schmidt as far as I know, and that's the one I call my floppy brush. It's the Langnickel Royal Sable 5590, not available anymore, but I love this brush. It's really, really soft and floppy for giving me special effects, and I have several sizes of that, and I use them sometimes for smoothing areas out, or I use them wherever the image says it needs a floppy effect. I use those brushes. I can't give you a precise definition or description there because they serve many, many purposes for me. Another brush now, another specialty brush that I use, it's sort of invaluable, and that is the rigger, and that is when you need very quick, thin lines. I love the rigger, especially in watercolor. I love the rigger. When you need very, very quick, thin lines, it allows you to do, like, well, I can't give you specific examples. It depends on what you see. But for example, if you have, if you see twigs on trees, that you see many, many little twigs on trees, this gives you that quick gestural movement that allows you to do that. But that's not the only thing. It has many uses. What I'd like to do is to look at the image and ask the question, what brushstroke does that need? Or what brushstroke am I seeing? Sometimes I look at images and I actually see the brushstroke, I see the image as brushstrokes itself. So if you need further instruction about brushstrokes, we do have on our website, dianemize.com, we do have a whole series on brushstrokes. Also, to the question of how to use these, we have several YouTube quick tips right here on this site on various ways to use brushes. So just go on the site itself, in the studio with Diane Mize, click on that, click on videos, and cursor down and look at the whole list of videos that we have. Several where I've shown how to use specialty brushes. I haven't mentioned the fan brush. I don't use it that much, but we do have a quick tip on the fan brush, and so it all pretty much ends up being about what kind of brush will best work in whatever phase the painting is in, and how that image, or how whatever image I'm painting calls for a particular kind of brush. And that's a very generalized thing, but once you've had the experience, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you found this helpful, and if you would like for me to address something that you're having a question about, leave us a comment right down here. We'll put you on the schedule, and we will eventually get to a quick tip for your request. And as I mentioned, dianemize.com, you know by now we have 170 full-length instructional videos. Also have added recently live sessions. So look in the right-hand column there, click on live sessions and see what live opportunity we have available now. So there's your quick tip.